All right, so one last time for my friends who are just joining us, we are going to be using that blank Chapter 15 CCOT LEQ. Face-to-face friends, I gave you a paper copy. Virtual friends, you could have either printed this off because I showed it to you last week, or you could be using the Google Docs copy. My goal, hope, and dream is that you have Chapter 15 near completed because it was due today, as we'll be using that. And it's way easier to understand what I'm going to be talking about with the LEQ writing-wise if you got the content piece on lockdown. We are going to go through and we are going to go through and interact with our notes for Chapter 15 tomorrow with classmates. So again, Chapter 15 tomorrow with classmates. And then you will also be getting back your Chapter 14 notes if you handed those to me or sent me an email of them over the weekend. So those are a few things right now. Otherwise, today we're focusing on LEQ. The goal is that we at least get through a thesis statement, how to analyze a prompt, get through a thesis statement, and potentially one paragraph today. So that's the goal. If at any point you have questions, I probably should pull up my chat. Feel free to either come on your microphone or ask in the chat so I can help you. Otherwise, we're going to get started. If you are a face-to-face friend, or I guess a virtual friend, you're going to need your Chapter 15 notes out. In addition, face-to-face friends, when I gave you that paper copy, you might want like a highlighter or several different colors. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use several different colors on my computer to go through and analyze the prompt. And then also I'm going to give you tasks to do today for going and finding some things in your notes, and you might want to mark them in different colors. So first thing is, and I'm going to use this presentation that I have for you, is we are going to be reading through this prompt. So again, the prompt is that bold sentence at the very top of your page. It says, evaluate the extent to which patterns of interaction and commerce around the world changed during the era circa 1450 to 1750 CE. This is exactly the type of prompt that you will see on any type of LEQ or long essay question in which you are being given. It is going to give you a location. It is going to give you pieces of our spice chart. It is going to give you a time period, as well as a type of essay, which I'll go through in a second, and then essentially your task of what are you supposed to be writing or doing with this. So as we break down or take a look at this prompt in particular, I'm going to be using my Google Doc that I gave to each of you. So again, I'm going to be using this Google Doc. When we're all done with this Google Doc, I will also link it on Google Classroom for you to go back and reference, as well as this video that we're recording right now. So one of the first things that I always tell students is take some time, analyze the prompt, and figure out what the prompt wants you to do. So first and foremost, there are 3 different types of LEQs. Okay, so 3 different types. There is what is called a cause and effect LEQ, change in continuity, and a compare-contrast. This one here is asking you for changes or what changed in the world during this time. And so this is a change in continuity LEQ. This is the first one, that we are going through as a class. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to underline this word changed on my sheet. So again, I'm underlining this word changed on my sheet. And again, this is based on if you have the paper copy or if you have the Google Docs version. But what I'm going to write is, because it has the word changed here, okay, that's my vocab word, it's standing out to me. I now know that this is a change in continuity essay. It also says it in the title. But then, because this prompt is asking me what changed during this time period, I have to give them essentially 3 claims. Here are how my claims are going to be set up. I need 2 changes and 1 continuity. Okay, so if it is asking you what changed during this time period, you are looking for 2 claims that pertain to that verb, and then you are looking for 1 that is the opposite, so a continuity in this case. Now, with that being said, if the prompt asked, evaluate the extent to which patterns of interaction and commerce around the world continued during the era between circa 1450 to 1750, then you'd be finding 2 continuities and 1 change. So again, we're always having 3 claims in our essay, or we need to come up with 3 points. your prompt here will give you what you should be looking for. So again, this one is the vocab word changed. Therefore, it's a change in continuity essay. I'm looking for 2 changes and 1 continuity. As I continue analyzing this prompt, now that I know it's changing continuity, I need to know what specific pieces of the spice chart am I looking for, and then also location and time period. So here for world, okay, or around the world, this is my location. A lot of times your essays will give you specifics, such as like telling you to go into the New World to look for these interactions, or going in Europe, or just in Asia. They will never be super specific unless we are giving them for a specific chapter. But again, on the actual AP test, not super specific to narrow it down to just one empire during that time. So you should be able to pull from a variety of empires, or a wide range in your background knowledge for WAP to then answer these questions. So here, because it says around the world, that is my location. And I'll explain how that one works in a second. So again, I have my type of essay, my location, my time period is 1450 to 1750, which is our entire 300 years that we are pertaining to with units 3 and 4. And then my spices pieces, or my hot words, are interaction and commerce. So again, interaction and commerce. These are the things that I'm going to be focusing on within my essay. You again should be able to pick these things out, and I'm just going to go through and do some highlighting so that we can see where I'm getting these things from. You should be able to pick these out of prompts, and in fact, we're going to practice this when we are hanging out Thursday. We're going to practice this where you have to essentially tell me, here are the 4 things that you're looking for before you even start brainstorming for said prompt. Okay, so this is step 1. If you are able to do step 1, great, we are moving on. But if you can't do this step 1, then you are going to have difficulties writing that essay. And again, we'll practice this. This is one of the big things I want to go through. So once I have all of these things, I then need to start right now going through my notes and figuring out, well, where is this information? Then I'm going to start putting together my essay. What I would like everyone to do right now with their notes is we are going to start looking for my first claim, or my first thing. So what you're going to do is you're going to be going through your notes, and I put highlight yellow here or circle. Essentially, you want to denote in some way. Now, for denoting in some way, I've also had students who have decided to use that brainstorm your argument below box that's on the actual essay. So it looks like this. You can use that to jot down ideas. Again, I would go through my notes. You could come up with a separate sheet of paper, whatever's going to work for you, but you should start looking through your notes and looking through chapter 15 in particular. So hint, hint, chapter 15, because I have chapter 14. For any commerce action. So, going through chapter 15.1, okay, what do you see in chapter 15.1 that talks about money, that talks about jobs, that talks about agriculture, that talks about different types of trade that are going on in the world. And then I would either, again, put those on a separate piece of paper or highlight them in yellow. So right now, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to kind of flip through your notes. So again, 2 minutes to flip through your notes. And in particular, we are 7th hour today. I'm going to say that friends who are, your last name starts B through G. So B is in bananas and G is in grapes. We'll go with fruits today. So B through G, you are going to be giving me one commerce action that you see in your notes. I'll give you a solid hint. 15.2 is literally all about commerce. So I'm putting a timer on right now. 2 minutes. Ready, set, go, Z. right, so I can see some of our friends are typing things in, but again, if your last name starts with B through G, I'm looking for you to tell me something that has to do with commerce, any commerce actions, money, jobs, trade, agriculture, that would lead us or kind of tell us about some things in chapter 15. So far, we have ideas with silver mining in Mexico and Peru, trading post empires, controlling of the Indian Ocean, silver, specifically silver in China. Remember, China has, I call it the hots for silver, but China loves silver during this time. Anything else trade-wise? .3 is also going to have some trade. So again, 15.3 also has some trade in it for my friends who might be stuck. Fur is another one. Fabulous. All right, so then what I would do is I would make note again, and I'm going to exit out of my presentation here, and I would write down. Now, because this is asking for changes, all right, one of the things I want to look for is this trading that's happening something that's happening around the world, and whether it's staying the same or changing during this time. So it's staying the same or changing during this time. For right now, I'm just going to brainstorm. I'm writing down that we have silver trade going from Mexico, or going from Spanish America to Asia. We have this fur trade. You could talk about the fur trade, remember, in North America or in technically Siberia to Europe. Anna has the trading post empires. Specifically with Portugal. I think I got the big ones. All right, so then I have these ideas down. Okay, this would, again, be some of our interactions, and I would double check or now start going through my notes and figuring out, well, are these changes that are occurring, or are these things that are staying the same? I would say by looking at all three of these, what are we guessing? Are we guessing all three of these are things that happen starting in 1450? Now, remember, people are not in the Americas yet in 1450. So give me a guess right now, lovely humans. Are these things that are changes, or are these things that are staying the same throughout this entire time period, 1450 to 1750? I have a tally for changes, a tally for changes, a tally for changes. Tally for changes. You are correct. Okay. So these are different changes that are occurring in the world during this time. Okay, so these are changes. So what I'm going to write is I'm going to write change. I know I have the benefit of my computer to write this in front. So if you want to write this again in the back, know that my brainstorming page is always super messy. So this portion up here, so if yours is, that's totally okay. So again, these are some changes that are occurring. Eventually what we'll get to, and I'll talk more about this when we write the thesis statement, is that you're going to want to say, this is what it was like at the beginning. This is what it was like at the end. Here's how I know that that happened. And that's what our essay is going to show us, is that these changes actually occurred. Because, gosh golly, now like 10 of you, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, I lied. 8 of you just told me that this is a change. So I want to see, well, what exactly does that change look like? Now what I'm going to ask of you, though, is because our prompt is not only asking for interactions, or sorry, in commerce, is that it is also asking for interactions. And so I'm going to give you 2 minutes right now to go through your notes. Again, 2 minutes, go through our notes. And you are looking for interactions. So I'm talking about is there any empire building? And Anna already kind of gave away one of those. Are there any changes in demographics, disease, migration during this time period? Again, looking specifically at chapter 15. So chapter 15, if you can see any of that. Chapter 15:1 is probably your best bet, although there will be some others. And then I want to hear from my friends whose last names are H through M. So if your last name is H through M, H is in, what's a fruit that's H? I don't know any fruits that are H's. So we're going to say H is in hippopotamus, and then M as in monkey. We'll go with animals. You are my peoples who are going to share out. So I'm going to give 2 minutes starting now. It's 1:52. At 1:54, we are reconvening. Ready, set, go. And I have 3 wonderful humans who have started finding some things in their notes. But if you are somebody, again, who your last name starts with a H through M, I would love to hear from you. So again, H through M. So far from Jesse, we have Asian and European trade networks connecting. From Maya, we have the silver drain and silver being used around the world, but eventually it just makes its way to China. She even kind of told us an interaction. Disease in the Americas and Siberia from our friend Owen. I can see a few more friends typing. We have, oh my gosh, now you guys are all answering once. Okay. Recovery of the Black Death. We have Europeans going from Spain to India, sea travel. So we have that increased interactions. Philippines spreading Christianity. Fabulous. I'm going to pull up my Google Doc and start adding some of these so that my friends at home can add. So again, this one is, these ones were for commerce, so I'm going to put that there. And these ones are for all right, big ideas that you guys have told me thus far. Guys just keep adding. Okay, so Jesse had Asian and European trade networks finally connected. We have diseases spread to Americas. Oh, and did it talk about diseases in Siberia in 15.3? I can't remember. Was that 15.3? Could you give me a thumbs up or thumbs down? It did? Okay. I couldn't remember if that was chapter 14 or not. Oh, you know what? It works either way. We have interactions, silver. Maya, I'm going to leave yours up with commerce right now only because it's mainly talking about that, but we'll add, you gave me a great before or beginning end, so I'm going to go with that. Trade networks finally connected. You guys also added in here, we have expanding empires, specifically European. Oh, I'll make that a new one, because otherwise that line's really wrong. Expanding European empires, kind of going with, the piece here. Trading post empires. Okay, so for instance, my friend Campbell here with the Spanish going to the Philippines, that's one of my examples for trade networks expanding empires. Campbell, keep that in your thoughts as we talk about evidence, because that can be one of our pieces of evidence in a second. And then the last one that we had was Michaela with the Atlantic slave trade. Over. All right, so you guys have kind of already done our next task, but ultimately looking at these three things, these four things. How do I want to word this? Nope, never mind. I'm just going to move on. So as we look at these, again, a lot of these are going to be changes, okay? So changes here, because many of these cases we are saying like, hey, they were not doing this before, right? We did not have global exchanges. We did not have this global trade network. Europeans definitely were not the front runners in terms of commerce during this time, and now they are. And so many of these are changes that are going to occur. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write change in front of these. We now have, and you guys did an awesome job, 7th hour. When Hagen said she really liked you guys, she wasn't kidding. So what we already have is tons of different claims that we could potentially use. We'd have to clean them up a little bit, but we have tons of claims that we can use, again, because our essay is asking us for 2 changes and 1 continuity, those 2 changes and 1 continuity. Our problem right now is that we don't have 1 continuity. So again, we don't have that 1 continuity. What I'm going to ask you to do, however, is start thinking back to before I was here for us hanging out. In addition to what you learned while I've been here, and think about, how's it going to show up? Any continuities of commerce or interactions. Now, I know that some of these I have down here are not commerce interactions, but just a heads up, when we talk about continuities, again, we're saying like, hey, at the beginning of 1450, this is something that's going to remain the same all the way through to the end of 1750. It is not a new introduction. And so I gave you some hints here of things that we generally say are continuities whenever you are answering an LEQ that has to do with this. Patriarchy, continuity since the beginnings of time. Religion, usually when we talk about specific religions in a place, it could be that that religion has been there forever, or it could be a change in terms that religion is something new. So that's one, but we can look at war. Good golly, there's always wars going on. So, I mean, that could be another continuity. And then socioeconomic classes are really this idea of a certain group of people being at a disadvantage. So what I want right now is I want you to look through your notes and see if you can find any continuities or things that they talk about at the beginning of this unit. Okay, so maybe chapter even 13, think about those chapter 14 notes you handed to me, into chapter 15. What is something that's staying the same throughout this time period? And then I'm looking for the rest of my friends to answer. So if your last name starts with N, as in narwhal, through Y as in yak, you are one of my friends who is going to be writing down a continuity. So again, what do you think we could use for a continuity? Something that we think is staying the same throughout this time period. So any of my friends, N through Y, narwhal through yak, if you have a continuity or something that you think is staying the same during this time, all right, so we have this idea of Christianity being in Europe, the use of Indian Ocean trade networks or trade routes. Oh, Myra, that's a good one. I didn't actually think of that one. Any others that you can think of for continuities? Any other continuities? Going once, twice. All right. So when I thought of continuities for this, one, we could talk about Christianity, but remember when we talk about Christianity being spread, that would more fall under our spices of cultural. As we were just talking continuities in general, like I didn't tell you specifically for those, Christianity, yes, indeed would be one, because Christianity is something that Europeans practiced at the beginning of this time period all the way throughout and really emphasized bringing it to others. It doesn't necessarily fall in lines of terms of commerce, and we'll talk more about interactions and maybe one that might fit better for that. But again, Christianity for this prompt doesn't work because it's asking for commerce and interactions in terms of different groups moving. That's the cultural piece that follows it. Use of Indian Ocean trade routes, we could talk about that one. I actually like that one a lot, Myra. I did not have that one down. So again, I'm going back to my brainstorming sheet. I'm going to write in here continuities. Myra gave me one of use of Indian Ocean trade network, trade routes. Myra, I hope your feelings are not hurt. I have another one, and that's the one I'm going to use for my essay because I already planned it out with this one. But this one follows along the lines of interactions and of commerce, so it kind of combines the two. But I'm going to talk about the use of slaves or slavery. So that's the one that I'm going to be using in my essay. Now, what I'm going to encourage you right now is if you have not been writing any of this down and you would like to, you can take a screenshot of this. Again, if you would like to write this down, you can take a screenshot of this. And the next piece that we are then going to work on, let me double check on time. Okay. The next piece that we are going to work on is writing a thesis statement. So again, when we're writing a thesis statement, a few different things. We have to have, where is it? We have to have a type of essay we're writing first off. We already have that, so we know this is what our 3 claims should look like. We should have 2 changes, 1 continuity. We've gone through that. We should have a location. So right now we're saying around the world. Many of your claims combine the entire world. They don't focus on just one specific place like China and then stick there. We have a time period as well as our spices. So the very last thing that we need to do in terms of brainstorming is just making sure that whatever we pick from here is going to, sorry, I want to find my essay, is going to fit this beginning, middle, end, or beginning and end for changes that are going to occur. So what I'm going to use is this one for commerce, and I can't remember who brought this up. I can check and give you some credit. So Ethan was my first friend who brought this up, and then Anna Forrest also brought this up, and then later Maya brought this up as well, the idea of silver. So this is the first claim that I'm going to use for commerce. And when I talk about the silver trade in my essay, and again, I'm kind of tailoring this to what I already have pre-planned. When I talk about it, I am going to talk about this idea that at the beginning of our time period, so 1450, is that we traded local goods and services. And then by the end of this time period, you are going to see this global push for silver. Or that silver is going to be our global monetary fund, monetary use, whatever. So the global use of silver. So again, this is one of my changes. As I'm working through my notes, I'm looking, I can see some different things here. Again, I've told my already, I'm going to use this, the use of slaves, as my continuity. So I'm going to cross it off from being one of my changes. And now I ultimately am going to make this decision. Do I want to talk about diseases or expanding European empires? I'm going to say right now, Owen, I hope you are not offended, but I'm going to talk about this idea of expanding European empires only because I feel like I can find way more information on this, or I can find tons of evidence where I can say this, 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 and this as I'm writing my essay. Because at the beginning of this unit, right, we talked about how Asia was Asia, Europe was Europe, the Americas were the Americas. Now, by the end of this unit, again, we are really connected globally, all because Europeans went over to the New World, settled there, took over all the natives, and then from there started their trade routes. So I'm going to use this one. Again, I have to talk about what's happening at the beginning and the end. And so for mine, I'm going to say beginning of the empire, that you are going to see seclusion of Western Europeans, Asians, and Americans. And then by the end of my time, you are going to see European domination of these trading post empires in Asia. So I'm going to give you a second to write this down. If you want, you can also screenshot it to reference later. I just think it's easier to write it down because you're never going to remember half the stuff you screenshot. And I'm going to quickly walk through one more time all of our thinking from this. I will let you know on an actual essay once we get down what these should look like. That it is not going to take you this long to brainstorm. In fact, by the end of the year, I usually tell people that this portion, everything that we've done in the last 25 minutes, that we're going to narrow it down to about a 5-7 minute brainstorming when we get to that point. So really quickly, I want to review what we've just done before I move on to what we're going to do. What we have just done is we have gone through and analyzed our prompts. So again, we have looked for the type of essay. We're focusing on change in continuity right now. And so I know that this is change in continuity, but I picked out that we're doing 2 changes, 1 continuity. I picked out our location, which we are saying is around the world right now, as well as our 2 pieces of the spice chart and our time period. So I've broken down each of those things. Then what I did is I brainstormed in my notes as well as in my head anything I knew from this time period that had to do with commerce, so trade, jobs, goods, things like that, interactions between groups of people, so again, interactions between groups of people, and then any continuities. Once I have done this brainstorming process, I really just went through and then picked out, okay, which are the 3 that I think I could find the most evidence for. As you scan down your current blank copy, you will notice that you're going to have to write some paragraphs. And again, we'll write those together, so don't panic. But I need some evidence. And so really what I want to do is think of, okay, based on the claims or the bullet points I have right now, what could I write the most about? And so I picked out things that I think that we can write the most about. And so that's really where I'm going right now. What we are going to do then is write a thesis statement. After I'm done writing the thesis statement, I am done for today. I have one thing about homework, actually 2 things about homework, and then we are good to go. So we have 4 minutes. I'm really quickly going to write a thesis statement. One of my big things when I write a thesis statement, I'm going to put that odd man out first. I will explain why I'm putting my odd man out first, or that one continuity, when we chat on Tuesday. So again, I'm going to put during the 1450 to 1750 CE time period. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you guys can see the whole thing. So I have during the 1450 to 1750 time period, the use of slavery around the world continued. In my prompt, it talked about giving a continuity, or it asked for 2 changes, 1 continuity. I'm going to use that word then so that my reader knows I'm talking about what is being continued. So again, this is a really great word to use to know about that continuity. Here is my first claim that we talked about above. Then in my in my thesis statement, I need to give my 2 changes. So I'm going to say, let's talk about commerce first. Commerce changed from trading of local goods to the global use of silver. I'm going to write Western Europe. Sorry, I'm going to scooch up for a second. Okay, that's what I have. So again, I have started off, I gave my first claim. I used my new hot word, continued. I then am going to say, hey, these are 2 things that are changing during this time. So I'm going to make sure I use that word changed. I'm telling you, here's what it was like at the beginning. Here's what it was like at the end. And then we're talking about regions being secluded to everyone now working together. So I have my 3 claims here. Again, 3 claims. If you want to screenshot this, you could screenshot this. My big thing is that on Tuesday, we should all have this thesis statement now written down. So again, Tuesday, we all have this thesis statement written down. Very last thing before we go, lovely humans, is taking a look at our calendar for this week. You should have had chapter 15 done for today. And so we are going to be note making chapter 15, but then to continue working throughout the week on chapter 16, I'm going to say that 16.1, how do I want to do this? 16.1 is due on Thursday. 16.2 is due on Friday. 16.3 will be due on Monday. And that's the bell. So again, no formal...
You go back to the thing.
Yep. So again,
Thank you, sorry.
Nope, you're good. So no formal homework for tomorrow. Please make sure you're caught up on your notes because we're going to be interacting with chapter 15 tomorrow and then working on this essay. So bring this. Otherwise, we're done. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, bye.
You're welcome. If you guys need to screenshot it, screenshot it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So.